In my work then, I talk quite a lot about making, and I talk about connecting. There's making, there's connecting. Making and connecting. And I normally connect that with and. But then I thought, what about making is connecting? Making is connecting. That seemed quite meaningful to me. Maybe it's something that you've all said to each other over coffee every morning for the past 30 years. But I thought it was a nice new way of putting it for me. And so I'm kind of basing this talk around that thought. I think making is connecting because you put things together to make something new, because you make connections with other people, and through that you feel engaged with the real world, you feel more connected to the world through making things. That's what I'm going to be talking about. Once you've got this idea of making is connecting, then there's a set of quite simple statements, as I said, simple statements that I'm going to go through, which I think follow on from that. So, here's the first one. People want to make the world their own. By that, I don't mean that people want to dominate the world. It's just a matter of wanting to customise it so that you feel happy in the world because you've surrounded yourself with objects that are meaningful to you. So you can see that in examples such as that cute way that Japanese people customise their mobile phones, all kind of dangly thing. The way in which people like to, if you're in one of those bog standard cubicles, then people like to make it more like home by putting on different decorations and stuff that expresses something about themselves. In online networks like Facebook, when people obviously post and share lots of stuff about themselves, they make that environment their own, and so they make the world their own in that sense. I have to include my little baby son in this because he appears in every single PowerPoint presentation that I do. This particular case, this is just after he came here last year, so some of you may have met him. He's called Finn. He certainly remembers you. There he is, he's aged about 3 months there because we've got a very nice Duplo dinosaur. And already he's touching objects, and I knew that, the standard bit of psychology that children engage with objects and explore the world through objects, but I didn't realise the extent. Look, there he is with Duplo dinosaurs, there he is. Some 6 months before Barack Obama was elected. There he's got his hands on the Duplo. There he's a bit older, he's making music, he's got his maracas that he loves, that he got for Christmas, and there he even plays Scrabble. So, some of the words may have been spelled wrong. So, wanting to make the world your own, that's maybe a kind of inward-looking thing, wanting to feel happy in the world. There's also an outward-looking one, which is people want to make their mark on the world. Of course, it occurs in many ways. Graffiti artists, that some people think are a problem, some people think they're not. They're people wanting to make their mark on the world. People, writing novels, writing reports, helping their colleagues, making a nice meal, being kind, wanting to bring up a child in a positive way, which is confident, happy child. That's a big task. There are all ways in which people want to create something in the world. So it happens in different ways. People want to make their mark. Following on from that, people want to be social. Rarely though, people want to be social, and so people want to make connections. I like bees, she likes bees, we like that, that connector. People like to make connections. Now, having got that, there's also creativity, which you were talking about this morning. That's a representation of creativity, but one of the things about creativity is, of course, it's not really like that. If I said, I'm going to be creative now, and so you'd be like, get on then, because we expect creativity to be doing something. I can't just sit down on that chair next to the piano and be creative, because you expect creativity to sort of happen in some obvious visual way where people are doing things. So creativity needs to be channeled, and you need something to be creative with, and you need a kind of context to be creative in. So creativity needs tools, and then once you've got that, well then, those tools can be anything. They can be Lego, they could be musical notes, they could be words, it can be a problem that you've got to tackle, it could be food, it could be lots of things. Once you've got creativity and you've got tools, well then, you make things. And, you can make something and feel just very happy that you've made it for yourself. Good. People spend ages working in a shed making something out of wood, and they're just happy to have done that. So that's one part of it. But then you can get much more meaning from it by sharing it with other people, as you know. Again, that example works online very well. That's what lots of people are doing online when they're making and sharing. But also it works perfectly well for explaining why people like to play with Lego, why they like to be in a craft club, why they like to be in an orchestra, all of these things. People wanting to make and share collectively, make meanings together. I think that's quite powerful stuff, isn't it? So that's how we engage with things. But what about how we engage with knowledge? Now, in the past, and still today really, there's quite a lot of this. It's what I call the sit back and be told culture. There's knowledge, there's teacher, there's children. Knowledge, teacher, children. Are those children having a kind of stimulating, hands-on, minds-on, Lego kind of experience with knowledge? No, they're clearly not. There's a book I like by Guy Claxton, came out last year, where he talks about developing learning muscles to create powerful learners. And the learning muscles, they're kind of attitudes, orientations to knowledge, which I've listed there for you. And he says that these powerful learners who can do these things, they're ones who feel happy asking questions, they like to explore, they're happy to experiment, they like to collaborate, they work well in teams, and in particular, they're not afraid to make mistakes. Often in schools, and I'm talking about UK example of school, making mistakes is the worst thing you can do, it's just humiliating and you've done something wrong. But of course, making mistakes should be fine, because powerful learners know that you can make mistakes and not be knocked back by those mistakes because it's something to learn from. Positive, powerful part of your learning process. In the UK, well then, school often isn't really like that. At the moment it's about learning for tests, copying stuff down, learning what the teacher says. Whereas what we really want is creative, inquisitive learners for the 21st century, of course. Television, I see, is also part of this, really. Knowledge, television, viewers. Knowledge, television, viewers. This seems quite gloomy. But I think what we're seeing is a shift towards what I call a making and doing culture, where you can see how it's changed. Here people have got their hands-on knowledge, getting to grips with it, changing it, manipulating it, exploring. And obviously that's the kind of orientation to knowledge that we would like to see. An obvious example of that, I mean, Wikipedia is that model, people getting their hands on, doing it, changing it, making it for themselves. This is a different way of showing it. Networks are making and doing these. Might be people online, or they might be people just within a school or a network of friends, getting to grips with knowledge, hands-on, minds-on, that kind of connection with knowledge is the really fruitful way in which people learn and might come to be able to change the world. So I'm getting towards the end, you're pleased to hear. That's kind of summary of the different things I've talked about. We don't need to give the next generation particular ways of thinking, I don't think. In particular, we don't need to tell them what to think. But I think we do need to give them tools, ways in which they can make and connect and share, make their mark on the world, and feel like a part of the world. Less of that model, more of this model. There's making, then, and through making, physically making things that make us happy, expressing ourselves through making, then we make connections with other people, which is powerful, sharing our meanings and sharing our world with others, and then, through that process, connecting us with the whole world. We face some terrible challenges, climate change, you'll be aware of. A very big challenge, huge challenge faced by the next generation, and we obviously need creative solutions, creative ways, not only to cope, but to change people's behaviour so that things don't get worse and might get better in time. And so we really need to stimulate creative thinking for that. So we basically, what I'm going to say is we don't need people who are going to just create the world as it is. We want people